Greetings, everyone. This is Ayman Tarabishi, ICSB Executive Director and Deputy Chair of the Department of Management at the George Washington University School of Business. This is the ICSB Exchange webinar. I am very delighted to have here today two dear colleagues of ours helping in the entrepreneurship and small business domain. Let me first introduce Dr. Norris Krueger. Dr. Norris Krueger, I have a name for him, and he is the Nikola Tesla of entrepreneurship worldwide. He is an amazing human being. He's a fantastic researcher, well-renowned researcher, a very dear friend of ICSB. He's also a former ICSB officer, known for his innovative research and teaching, but now is a global champion or gold champion for ESHIP. Norris is working to advance research from the bottom up, entrepreneur-led ecosystems. He is just one amazing person, and I'm just so excited to have Norris with us here on this webinar here. I'm also delighted to introduce Christine Lai. She works with Kauffman as a community activator for the ESHIP initiative, focused on developing strategic partnerships. Other ESHIP Goal Champions will join us to answer questions about the goals themselves. So this is a nice platform for us to learn about ESHIP, to learn about the great work that they're doing, and some of the creative ideas that they have that the world needs now. So without further ado here, I want to introduce Norris. Norris, I see your slides are up. The floor is yours, and please share your knowledge.
I'm so honored to be doing this with Christine. Christine's going to lead off and then hand it to me. I will try to keep up with the presentation. This is very exciting for me. This is a huge opportunity for ESHIP. The value propositions are many and large, and I hope that you'll see that the value propositions for ICSB and its members are equally large. Christine, you have the floor. Wave if I am slow at changing the slides.
You're all great. Thanks so much, Norris, and thanks, Ayman, for having us here today. This is a great opportunity, I think, to bring together the ESHIP and ICSB communities, all in service of supporting entrepreneurial ecosystems. And so today, our hope is to be able to share a little bit about ESHIP, the really awesome community-driven activities and initiatives that have been making progress over the past few years, and invite any questions, ideas, thoughts into the chat. I'll also keep an eye on it as I'm with the tag team with Norris on this presentation. But really appreciate all of you making the time. And Norris, we want to kind of cue up the next slide to give a quick preview of what our time together will be like. So hoping to share a quick overview of what ESHIP is, what the ESHIP goals and initiatives are, show some progress on some of the proposed projects that are out there, and then of course how to get involved. And I think Norris was also hoping to use some of this time to really engage with you all to figure out what it is that we can do together. So looking forward to sharing a little bit more and hearing your thoughts following this webinar. I think we can kind of skip to the next one, Norris, since Ayman did such a good job of introducing us. You can skip to the next one. They're just us. Those are us live. So ESHIP. So what is ESHIP? About a few years ago in 2017, a lot of this work around entrepreneurial ecosystem building has been going on for decades. And one of the things that a lot of folks have been talking about and realizing is that there's all these great efforts that are happening, but we haven't been coordinating our efforts. We haven't been able to have an opportunity to communicate. And so in 2017, the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation saw an opportunity to convene all different stakeholders together to have this conversation and to figure out how do we do this work better together. And so in 2017, they kind of had this call out to ecosystem builders around the country for the most part, since Kauffman is really US focused, but also has initiatives with other partners internationally. And so I think this is also an effort to also expand our international reach and really think through what entrepreneurial ecosystem building looks both in the US and outside of the US. But in terms of the initiative itself, we've been working with a group called the Value Web, and we have this 3-stage process: discover, design, deliver. And so that first year was really about bringing folks together and being like, ecosystem building, what's that? Does that term resonate? What are folks doing around that work? And really just discovering who the people are, what their thoughts were, what their efforts are, what's been happening. in 2018, we made a transition into design and really being inspired by the UN Sustainable Development Goals with their approach of saying, okay, if these 17 things don't exist, we're going to be in doom with everything that's happening in the world, which we're getting a sense of now in this current unprecedented time. But we took kind of a little bit of an opposite approach. We identified 7 goals that we thought, if we can achieve these goals together, a new professional field around entrepreneurial ecosystem building will exist. And so last year, we really started making that transition into the deliver phase. And so what that looks like is really being able to activate the community. That's part of my role. And I have another colleague, Cecilia, who I see in the chat is also joining us today, to be able to support the community efforts that are happening all around the country. Really local entrepreneurs, ecosystem builders, national resource providers is what we call the organizations who support these activities through products, tools, programs, funding, different resources. And so really just being able to make all of our work visible to each other so that we can at least be able to try to coordinate and then figure out opportunities to collaborate. So in terms of ESHIP, it's an initiative that Kauffman has kind of stoked as a steward of the field, but really this work is community driven and really focused on field level work. And so really grateful, of course, to the Kauffman Foundation and their team, but also just reiterating that they're one organization among many that are national resource providers really supporting this work and really stewarding the field. Norris, you want to launch us into the next slide? So again, what is ESHIP and what is entrepreneurial ecosystem building? The foundation uses this as a nice slide just to be able to kind of describe the theory of change through all of this. And so as you can read, it's like communities need economies, economies need entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs need ecosystems, ecosystem needs builders, and ecosystem builders need a strong professional field. The way that I often describe it in really simple terms is that people always think the grass is greener on the other side, but I always say the grass is greener where you water it. And so we're really trying to support local communities and cities being able to invest in their entrepreneurs and investing in the people that are in their communities versus just looking to a large corporation or a big company to be able to come in and be their economic solution for revitalization or recovery or resilience. And so how do we create a robust ecosystem, and how do we really create this field around ecosystem building that helps connect all the dots between public-private sector, the government, the academic universities, the startups, the funders, the VCs. So there's a lot of different stakeholders in a community, and this ecosystem role is vital in doing that. And so far, a lot of that work has been invisible. And so we're really trying to make that work visible and make a professional field out of it. Beth, I see you raised your hand. I don't know if you wanted to put something into the chat, or maybe in a little bit, we can also kind of have you share some thoughts too. But yeah, well, going back to this slide real quick. So there's 7 ESHIP goals in that discover and design phase. We really, it was all around listening to the community. What are the things that folks thought were needed to actually create this professional field around ecosystem building? And so thousands of Post-its, lots of conversations, lots of distilling. The community identified these 7 goals: inclusive field, collaborative culture, shared vision, connected networks, practical metrics and methods, universal support, and sustainable work. So I kind of ran through all those very quickly, but I'll be tag teaming Norris and he'll go into each one of those a little bit more. Oh, and of course, storytelling. I think that's one thing that wasn't a formal goal, but as we know, there's a lot of things that kind of weave together everything. And so storytelling touches all of the goals and has been an important initiative, and one that's gotten a lot of great traction that you'll hear about later. That's been really stoked by a lot of the ESHIP champions themselves and the ESHIP community. And then, so where do you learn more about ESHIP? Here's a couple links, and we'll have links throughout. But the first one is the Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Building Playbook. It's currently on version 3. And this has been something that the foundation, the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, has been helping to kind of coalesce everyone's different stories, learnings, what it is that ecosystem building is. So it's been both a great onboarding guide for folks who are trying to understand what ecosystem building is, and then 2, what is their role, or how do they kind of take that back to their communities? How do they share that and make the case for ecosystem building for their role and for the importance of the professional field? So it's a great playbook. I think the next version I'm very excited about. There's been a lot of really incredible things that have just been happening over the past few years that will be shared in the next version of the playbook. And then the next one is a community dashboard. I think a lot of this work at the very beginning can be very overwhelming. And so it's kind of like, how do I even orient to this work? And so we created this community dashboard in hopes of being able to kind of create an easy way to be able to orient to what the activities have been that have been taking on thus far. And Angela, I see your note on the side. Happy to put these links into the chats. So there's the playbook, and then here's the dashboard. And so in the dashboard, you'll see a lot of really great things around who the folks in the community are, the ESHIP Goal Champions. And then also, I think the most important thing is the project canvases. It's like, what's the activity that's happening now? And again, Norris will talk about those a little bit more in a little bit. And then the other thing is the meetup schedule. Every month, there have been these ESHIP Goal meetups just to be able to create a space that folks who are working on different initiatives can come together, share their progress, share their questions, share their challenges as a group. And so it's been a great way to kind of have the community organize around each of the ESHIP goals. I think, Norris, I'm going to tag team you now. Oops, and you're on mute, Norris. Wait, Norris. You're on mute, Norris.
That usually comes from popular request. Thank you, Iman. Thank you, Christine. This is obviously something I'm very enthused about, very passionate. We do have, we have at least a couple goal champions appear to be online. We have Beth Zimmer. Beth, can you say hi? Or not? Annika Horn? Anyway, we want to have you guys chime in and tell the world what I've got wrong wrong so far. Now, the neat thing about this is the 7 goals kind of are in a logical order. It's one builds upon the other, and sort of one place to get started is the first goal is labeled it as and building an inclusive field that everyone should be at the table. This is something that I know that's very near and dear to the heart of Iman and to all of ICSB. This is not just about high growth, high tech unicorn wannabes. This is about empowering as many people as possible, and in particular, to do that, we have to empower an increasingly diverse and inclusive roster of ecosystem builders. And so that's kind of exciting. Now, under each of these initiatives, each of these goals, there are multiple initiatives that have sort of evolved as potential priorities. This is not exhaustive list, but these are the ones that feel to us as being most important. One of them is certainly this notion of national resource providers that Christine talked about. This is the idea is who are the other players who could get involved and help move these projects forward, whether they take over a project and they find funding for it, or that they can provide the funding. It's kept purposefully broad by definition. But it's important that so many of the NGOs, so many of the entrepreneurial support organizations are not terribly diverse, not terribly inclusive, and it's something we really need to work on. The second one is one I'm particularly intrigued by, because this is something that is getting a little bit of traction. There's a lot of discussion on is how do you evangelize the message and and getting out people to not only be diverse and inclusive in terms of the speakers, but make sure that they are fully trained. Think about it like a TEDx series of speakers like that, and that we have people who can articulate all the different inclusionary messages. And so I'm sort of excited by that. And if you have any questions, we have Iman. If somebody has a desperate question, I'm happy to be interrupted. Anyway, now this is there will be a quiz on this tiny little diagram here, but this is a project canvas. This is something also that evolved, that there's a 1 or 2 page framework is a very kind of like a weird version of the business model canvas of what is the project that we want to move forward on, who do we need, what resources do we need, what's the value proposition for the critical stakeholders, and how do we get started. And under goal 1, the title is Kaleidospeak 2.0. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure where that came from, but it just looks cool on the screen. Is when you go to the link for that's the bit.ly link for ESHIP, capital letters, lowercase projects. This is the first one that you'll see. And this is, if Tiffany Henry's around, she could definitely speak to that. So that's exciting. Okay, building on inclusion is that how do we be more collaborative? And this really building a community online is really damned hard. There's a lot of luck involved in it and a lot of effort. But there's some things that bubble to the top of this that I got excited, I'm certainly excited about. The idea of this ESHIP summit where they bring together nearly 500 people each of the last 3 years in Kansas City to network, to connect, and start building this field. What if we started doing these at a regional level? You know, whether it's Boise, Idaho, or Tokyo, the kind of thing we can work forward to. It turns out a lot of these projects, it's trickier than it may seem, but I think this one is definitely low-hanging fruit for people to pursue. I don't want to belabor these too much. I keep pushing forward. Okay, we're inclusive, we're collaborating. And to collaborate, we need a shared vision, or not a monolithic lockstep, dear leader kind of mindset, but sharing what the words we use, the phrases, the messages, and this is really important. And the one on this one is particularly interesting. 3.4 is updated wiki entries. I show the one for entrepreneurial ecosystem to people, and everyone's first reaction is, oh God, it was written by a committee, wasn't it? That there's stuff in it that's even wrong. But that's a project that I think is going to be a lot of fun because a lot of us would love to know how to get on board and write a wiki. And if I do that, I'll be in there. I'll make sure I'll do a page for Iman. Iman needs a Wikipedia page. Let's see. Here are the rate busters of our group. Goal 4, because the storytelling people are housed there, and they've had the most traction, I think, really of anybody. That we're trying to figure out how do we connect, make us a network of networks, just like any entrepreneurial community is a network of networks. And there are a lot of the usual things, but the one I want to point to is the ecosystem storytelling clearinghouse. That they have created a marvelous blog you must follow. You must raise your right hand, put your left hand on your heart, and swear you're going to follow this blog because it's Jeff Bennett and Annika have done a marvelous job on that. That as part of this storytelling initiative that is Builders Hub. There's a link to it, ecosystembuilderhub.com. It's also on Twitter. I just love it because they've written twice about me and they made me sound smarter than I actually am. So I'm very tickled by that. But here's another one that popped up, the Unsung Heroes. Who are the hidden gems of our field? Who are the people whose stories we really need to share? And that has been marvelous to read, person after person I have never heard of, and now I want to go have drinks with. I mean, this is just, there's some astounding people doing great work. All of you on the call, you can think about in your communities, who are those unsung heroes? Who are those hidden gems? That might even be you. I know looking at the list of participants, some of you actually fit that bill. Christine talked about the playbook, that's kind of thing. Now, I am hopelessly biased because I've been focusing my efforts as Goal Champion probably overly on Goal 5. Goal 5 is the next piece of the puzzle is how do we be more evidence-based? And what we've got, our priorities here are how do we get better metrics, better methods, better analysis. So focusing. Again, building a community practice, a learning community is a tricky process, but we're making a lot of progress, I think, on that. Repository, we have a lot of so-called best practices, proven practices that, well, who says? And even if they are valid, how do we build a repository for people to go looking at this? These are both goals, I think, fit the ICSB mission to a T. The third one is one ICSB is already helping us with, let's bring together the great questions with the great people who can answer them. Let's bring together scholars, educators, policymakers, civic officials, and ecosystem builders to sort out what are the big burning important questions that we need to answer. If you're a math, the Hilbert problem. If you're in physics, the Feynman problem of moving the field forward. And last August, we piloted this at the Academy of Management, large research workshop, nearly 100 people. We had over 100 people signed up for Vancouver. I have a feeling we're not going to be in Vancouver, but that's going to move ahead as on a virtual basis. You all are, of course, welcome. And I'm going to try my best to talk Iman into adding the ecosystem builders to the great policy conference that ICSB does every October, which probably will also be virtual. So we're not goal 4, but we've got more projects. Amy is led by Alistair Brett, who's one of the world's experts on complex, dynamic, interconnected systems. That kind of sounds like ecosystems, and we're really glad to have. I'm surrounded on goal 5 by a lot of people who are a lot smarter than I am, and it's been bloody marvelous. Data science. How do we help our members, help everyone be better users and communicators of good metrics and science? There's some other stuff we've had cheekily described as the panel studies of entrepreneurial ecosystem development. If you know the PSCD from entrepreneurship, this is kind of that model. It's still in its nascent stage. This could end up being like GEM. It definitely will be something like the NFIB monthly survey. The idea is to have maybe an annual big survey as part of the panel, say quarterly pulse taking surveys, and then surveys not just of the ecosystem builders, but answering the questions they have. Each goal will say, this is a question I want the membership to answer, and we get started. That's kind of exciting. Again, these are things that fit into the wheelhouse of ICSB. One very exciting one on goal 2 is this. Every one of you on this call knows you could do 100+ definition of entrepreneurship in your sleep. Okay, maybe we should grasp the nettle and wade in on that. And there's a project led by Chad Renato from Australia and Valter Lukkinen from Finland who are trying. Let's take a whack at that. The What Works Clearinghouse is shamelessly stolen from the U.S. Department of Education's What Works Clearinghouse that actually has a process for vetting new ideas, new methodologies. And that one, again, is something maybe we can get funding for, to fund people like you to do some of these tests. The workshop, the conference already talked about. Now, how do we, okay, we're inclusive, we're connected, we're networked, we're telling stories. Okay, how do we manage the whole stakeholder process of the ecosystem world and the ecosystem of ecosystems? And as you can see, some of these are fairly obvious kinds of things that we can do. That a couple projects, one is that our things are moving forward on these various projects. The one that's not obvious from the prior slide is we have people interested in how do we help communities to have the ideal dashboard of entrepreneur and small business metrics and stories that we move forward. That again, in the infancy. There are a lot of people with opinions about dashboards. Maybe it's time to move on that. Last but not least, how do we make this sustainable? And this very nice title, words up there, but the really is, how do we get paid? How does this get monetized? How does it become economically sustainable as well as socially? Again, there are a lot of interesting things going on that you look at. one that's farthest along is 7.6, the ecosystem building book list. There's an amazing list of books, and Amazon is getting, every time that gets updated, Amazon gets more money from me. But the things that we're doing under this, building, how do we, build this field? One is we need to understand what ecosystem builders are really like. And so this is kind of an old school job analysis plus assessment of the facets of the entrepreneurial mindset. You can probably guess my role in that. But this idea actually came from Andy Stoll, who I don't know if he's on the call, but he is a senior program officer and our guardian angel in this process. But wouldn't it be cool to look at 300, 400 ecosystem builders and see what do they have in common? Maybe there are different flavors of that. There are people recently, several people said they want to build a MOOC, a webinar around this, and they now know about each other, and we might see a collaboration. The book list I talked about. There's also people quietly working on figuring out how do we do a certification of that, and they're working, the IEDC and others, on that, and I'm very happy to support them. Anyway, just a recap real quick of the Unsung Heroes and the Builder Hub are projects with serious traction. We had some traction on the surveys. We're starting to get traction on the definitions. The research conference is already rolling. I think the webinar is starting to get traction. That maybe there's a way to work with ICSB on that. The psychographics thing, I just like writing the word psychographics. That is that's an A journal level of research project that would also be very useful. And I think that's kind of the gold standard on that. The ecosystem building, I do recommend that. When you see the slides, there's a lot of links here, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but I want you to be aware that there's some great resources out there. There is a Facebook page. I urge you to, if you're interested at all, sign on. There's some other Facebook stuff. There's a Slack channel, and just look for the hashtag ESHIP when you're poking around. Some other additional resources that I strongly recommend. And how do we get involved is take some time, wade through the goals and the initiatives under those goals, and see what intrigues you, what impassions you. Look at the projects that we have already, and okay, who would you like to sign on? Where would you like to help? Where would you like to lead? In fact, if you can come up with an original project, we are all ears. As Christine said, there's a month for each of the 7 goals. There is a monthly 1-hour Zoom call that's a meetup that is a nice chance to check in with each other, but also a chance to learn. I usually have a killer guest speaker to talk about the difference in that somebody is making in the world that applies to that goal. Anyway, we would love to hear from you. That I know I kind of rushed through all of this, but this is really about you. If those of you know me know I like to talk. Definitely like to talk too much, but I think Christine and I would love to answer your questions. If Beth can chime in, or Annika, we're happy to have any of the other goal champions raise your hand, and we'll get you in. So Christine, thanks for setting this up in a way that makes me look actually good. And Ayman, always, I don't know if I'm Nikola Tesla. I kind of wish I was Edison, because he said genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So if I'm Tesla, then Ayman, you're definitely Edison. So
thank you very much. So what I'd like to do is let's open up for questions here. As mentioned by Christine and Norris, you can put them in the chat section here, or you can actually, there's also a Q&A section here where you can type in your questions, and we'll try to answer them as much as possible. Norris, is it Miss Beth Zimmer is the one you're mentioning?
Beth Zimmer.
Yep.
She's one of our rockstar goal champions.
And then also Annika Horn, I see they have their hand raised. I mean, if we're able to allow them to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's make sure that we can get them in right now. Let me just, Annika Horn, let me make you a panelist real quick. Okay, so Annika, I just made you a panelist, so you're free to talk. And Beth is the other person?
Beth Zimmer.
Yep, I see you here.
The Beth Zimmer.
Yep, and I'm going to promote her to a panelist as well.
Great to see you, Annika.
Hi, Annika.
Oh, you're on
And
mute.
Beth has a great picture.
Yeah.
Like I've never been on Zoom before.
And then Norris, if you can go back to the slide with the ESHIP resources so that folks can see those links, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So,
There we go.
Annika, if you wanna, oh, you're already unmuted. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the work you're doing as follow-up to Norris, and then we'll get Beth as well to introduce herself.
Wonderful.
Sure, absolutely. Hi, Annika Horn, currently based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Been along the ESHIP train from the very beginning, and very fortunate to do that. Personally, I'm on a mission to help ecosystem builders lead fulfilling lives and purpose-driven careers. And I have a knack for storytelling, which is why I got involved with the storytelling initiative, which is not one of the goals, but sort of cuts across all the different goals. What we are really interested in is, as part of the Unsung Heroes campaign, we're trying to really champion, celebrate, and highlight people who are doing this work around the country. Right now, we're focusing on the US just because ESHIP has mostly been focused on the US. But we're always really curious to find the underdogs of ecosystem building. And if you know anyone who fits this bill because they work in one of those 7 goals, or they're just amazing humans and supporting entrepreneurs, then please do shoot me an email. I shared my email address in the chat. We're always happy to celebrate these unsung heroes, and that is our way of trying to give more visibility to this entire movement. We have to be really careful that we talk in our bubble a lot, but our effort really is to go beyond that and go out into mainstream and get the attention of media outlets. But that means we need to have good stories to tell. So we're constantly trying to find new stories, interesting individuals who do great work. As part of the campaign this month, we're focusing on connected networks. We have an ecosystem builder from Costa Rica. We have ecosystem builders from New Mexico. So it has been so incredible to learn about their work, see what their community has to say. So this is one avenue that we want to provide to everyone on this call. Celebrate the heck out of the people who do great work in your community, be that yourself or be that someone you know. This has been great. I will say that the campaign has been underway since February, so we are about to close out this round, but we're considering running a second round. So whoever you nominate and reach out to me for, it would probably happen in the fall if it happens. What we're running into is what I think a lot of these projects run into is this is a pure volunteer effort. If you've ever done content creation, it takes a lot of time and effort to do interviews and transcribe them and publish everything and then promote them. So always keen to find partners who want to align and maybe help support those efforts. And I'm going to stop talking because I know Beth has a lot to say as well. And I'm absolutely open for questions. I'm going to mute myself, but I'm going to stay here.
Annika, thank you so much for a great introduction. And storytelling is a great way. And Nunaka and everybody was talking about storytelling and knowledge sharing. So you're grounded in very strong theories here. So storytelling is the best way to share knowledge and wisdom across different ecosystems, if you may. Beth, how are you? You're welcome. Introduce yourself.
And Beth, we can't see you or hear you yet. So if you wanted to turn your camera and unmute if you're able to.
Yay.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Oh, and nice sunshine. Yes, there you are.
Oh, we hate you.
See the screen.
We hate you. It's raining in Boise.
Oh, well, I'm here in Erie, PA, and if you know anything about Erie, it's typically this time of year cold and raining as well. So I'm taking every minute I can in the sun. So again, great to be here with all of you. I've been an ecosystem builder in my region for several years. And super grateful for the ESHIP initiatives and Kauffman Foundation and everybody that's engaged. I support and lead in some of these initiatives because we need this field in order to help the entrepreneurs be as successful as possible. And at the end of the day, when that happens, our economies flourish and we all thrive, whether we're in the United States or anywhere else on the globe, right? So that's a little bit about my story. What I'm really interested in hearing from all of you is how can we truly partner with ICSB to raise the volume on all that we're already doing?
So this is a great question, Beth, and I'm delighted to see you out and out. It's all nice and sunny there, so this is great. You know, when we had this conversation with Norris, which was leading the way here, one of the things we talked about is just awareness of all the great work you guys are doing to the ICSB network worldwide. You could see the list of countries that just chimed in just to see about it. We have almost 76, we're up to about 80 people worldwide. So the idea was to get the word out and the awareness, and then from there, allow for areas of connection or interaction or sparks, if you may. So you've put together an excellent presentation of ideas there. And I think Christina did a good job sharing all the documents available there. But I feel, and I think maybe one thing that we should all do here is be a little bit more specific, be a little bit more guiding, hold our hands, if you may, and saying, we want 6 people here, we want 5 people here, we want 3 topic areas of interest, and or you say, and we want some money as well. But write a list, a wish list of things, and we share it with the community. I say if you share 20 things you want and you get one, that's one you didn't have before. You know, and I think that's the attitude, or that's the entrepreneurial spirit that we want to say. Let's start somewhere, but let's define the list. Let's define what the areas of interaction, and I'll let other people chime in and comment. Maybe Norris, you have some ideas, and or Annika as well. That'll be great.
Well,
go ahead, Norris.
There are a couple of questions in the Q&A. We have some questions, I think, in the chat. I'm not sure if I pulled up the Q&A. The 2 questions in the Q&A are about Goal 5, and that in terms of the first question was about what are the questions that are surfacing now in terms of great research questions, and the other one is that this is from Tina, who is in LA, I think, and Sophia Bishop asking about where to get started on getting involved in Goal 5. Those are maybe a bit longer conversations, but one of the things we did last year in advance of the first research workshop was to ask people what are the truly important questions that are facing the field. And the great metaphor is circa 1900, the world's smartest guy, David Hilbert, who is a French mathematician, and he asked the question, is mathematics growing as a field or just getting bigger? What are the questions that we need to answer to move the field forward? Just trying to answer them will move the field forward, and asked both research scholars and educators, and asked ecosystem builders, and there was a surprising convergence. The most surprising one was about mental health. How do we, this is a high burnout activity. What can we learn about that? That was a very interesting question. Another one was, we like to say ecosystems grow bottom up, entrepreneur-led, red belt rocks. We don't really have a good measure of bottom upness, if that's even the right word. That people are, that's a very interesting research question, because that is a lot trickier than it sounds immediately. Or maybe one of you will cut through the Gordian knot and see the way to it. Another one that is take a lot of interest is one that there is a lot of some good work already being done is around social network analysis. You're looking at an ecosystem, it is a network. It's not a centralized network, it's a very distributed network. In fact, it's a network of networks. And we desperately need more people to be able to use the powerful tools we have in social network analysis, even using, if you're really brave, check out graph theory, graph databases that have directionality to them. So, but understanding the social is something we talk a good game about. We haven't really proceeded on. There are some other questions. I'll be happy to share those, but I don't want to. We want to get more specific, but not go too far. And I was so happy that people, that they wanted to know what is different, is there special different about ecosystem builders? Is there sort of a common theme in what they think, say, do, know how to do? Do they share a common mindset that we can assess? Or are there, as I'm guessing, several flavors of different subcategories of ecosystem? So I'm biased because I love this project idea, but I was happy that surfaced as well. To Sophia's question, that if you're starting to focus on goal 5, the first thing is to go to that dashboard and take a peek on the videos that from these prior goal calls. There are several that are absolutely marvelous. They usually start 20 to 30 minutes in and go for 15, 20 minutes, so we can sort of skip ahead to that. But Alistair Brett on complex systems, Balto Likkonen on what's going on in Europe, Chad Renando, who is doing his doctoral, in fact, I hope he's working on his dissertation and not on his call, but he researching all the different metrics that are out there. And so that one is also bloody marvelous to look at. That would be a place to start. Is we need people, yes, to come in and help. We also need people with fresh eyes to attract that. But it's a longer topic about getting involved in Goal 5, but take a look at what's happening, the calls, the projects, and we can go from there. Christine, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I really appreciate Ayman's kind of reminder. It's like we all have the entrepreneurial DNA within us. And I think, like you've mentioned, Norris, I think the dashboard is a great place just to, from this call, get a sense of what the goals are, what the initiatives are, and see what piques your interest. And I think every week, or at least once a month, there's different goal meetup calls that are happening. And so being able to look at the meetup schedule that's on the homepage and join one of the calls, or you can also tune into one of the videos that Norris mentioned to kind of get a sense of what the calls are like. But I think just being able to jump in and kind of see, I'm a big person on following your energy. And so I think the really incredible thing about everything that has been part of ESHIP is really the community activation, the community commitment, the community energy. Like Annika mentioned, it's things that we're all very familiar with, the volunteer effort. And this has been such an incredible and important thing that each one of us is here for. And so I think, how do we really support each other, both in the things that are challenging us, so that we can figure out how to address them together, and also the things that we want to celebrate with each other, which I think EB Hub and Unsung Heroes does an incredible job of. And so I think just being able to continue lifting the stories and the efforts of each one of us. I kind of joke in the chat, just came to me, Annika, when it's like storytelling isn't an official goal. And I was like, yeah, storytelling is the glue between all the goals. And so I know Cecilia also talks about that a lot in terms of all the interdependencies between everything. And so I think it'd be really awesome. I know on the chat, there's been some folks who are like, how does this model apply internationally, or is this specific to US? And again, like we've mentioned, even though ESHIP to date has been really US focused, it's kind of like, let's figure out this first playground first before we kind of like blast to the masses. But I think we're at a stage right now where being able to have opportunities to speak in front of a global audience like ICSB is really an opportunity to engage in these conversations and figure out how are we learning and seeing things in our different communities, because there's a lot to be learned there. So I think, like Ayman kind of encouraged us, one, yes, we can be clear on what our asks are. So I think we'll do that in our upcoming ESHIP goal meetup calls. And also for those who are, first timers and learning about ESHIP, check out the dashboard, see what speaks to you, join one of our upcoming meetup goal calls, ask us questions. I think eshipgoals@gmail.com is something that Cecilia is really awesome at checking out. The Facebook page also. And if you're really interested in kind of like getting in the weeds, ping us and you can join us in the Slack channel to really kind of jump into all of that activity as well.
Yeah, there's some, I'm trying to scrolling through the chat here that definitely that socialventurers.com is where Annika hides out, and there's some amazing stuff on that website. Samantha Steidel, who was at the prior ICSB CEEC conference, is that the SDGs are a really nice fit to this. And so thinking, your thoughts on how we can deploy that. I'm just sort of screening through the questions. Somebody had asked about, Beth has put a request in the chat that may have already zoomed by for most of you. Beth, do you want to repeat what you wrote in the chat?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the Goal 6 team has been looking for communities that have an interest in being a test pilot for a regional awareness campaign. Goal 6 is all about universal support. We need to prove that if you run an awareness campaign in your community, you can change the culture of your community to be much more conducive to entrepreneurship. So again, we're looking for communities that are interested in piloting, and we would need some matching funds and such to bring that forward. Please.
There's some great questions here that we're rolling. It's rolling faster and faster through here, but I'm glad we got Chad to chime in. Alistair, did you have a question? Alistair Brett?
Yeah, I saw it. He put it in the chat, and I'm curious, Ayman, Alistair's question was just, can we get a little bit more?
Yeah, so let me, if you all can hear me, right?
Yep,
so let me introduce you what ICSB is. I thought we just assumed it. ICSB stands for the International Council for Small Business, and we're a nonprofit organization founded in 1955. So we're the oldest organization in the world promoting entrepreneurship, micro businesses, small businesses, and entrepreneurs, really. And we're the organization mostly known for the last 4 or 5 years in which we advocated for the United Nations, or we asked the United Nations to help create an international name day to support micro and small medium enterprises, and what we call MSME Day. We felt that the SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals, wouldn't be accomplished without the active role or engagement of micro and small medium enterprises and entrepreneurs. So we rallied the UN to work with us on putting together this International Name Day, and it's now June 27 every year for forever, in which we celebrate the Micro and Small Medium Enterprises Day. Similar to Women's Day on March 8, now we have June 27 for MSME Day 8. So as you can see why we're very interested in this, because to create a global ecosystem to support micro and small medium enterprises, we need what just Beth mentioned here, is if you know someone in a community that tries to help, please let us know. Well, we're trying to do it from one community, from one neighborhood, to a global aspect here. So everybody, as I mentioned to Norris and Christine, everybody joins ICSB as a platform to creating this global ecosystem. So that's why we're delighted to host this session. I hope that addresses your question as well.
Yeah, and Ayman is too modest to mention that he figured out that what's the day before June 20? What's June 26th? The day before, Ayman?
Oops,
Ayman?
Yeah, I'm back. Norris, go ahead.
Oh, Ayman. So what? June 27 is a really cool day because what is June 26th?
Oh, good question. I knew you were going to ask me this question. So when I put the resolution forward to the UN, and I worked with Argentina, and after 9 months of shuttle diplomacy with them, and we got it approved on April 6th. But then they asked me when they got it approved, which day did you want? Ayman, which day do you want for this MSME Day? And I went in as an entrepreneur, and you all might be smiling right now. I went in and I looked at the most important dates, and I realized the date that stood out is June 26th is when the UN was created, when the charter of the UN was created on June 26th. So I looked at the day after and it was empty. Nobody has picked June 27 for no reason. And it's a weird day, June 27. Why June 27? But exactly for that reason, I picked June 27, because the day before is when the UN was created. And the idea is simple. When all wars stop, when all these disasters stop, a sign of peace is when a micro business and a small business opens shop the next day. So we wanted to remind the UN that not to forget SMEs or micro businesses, because they are the critical aspect of peace on earth and prosperity on earth. Small businesses, micro businesses. So we picked June 27. And they laugh at us because this year it's the 75th anniversary of the UN. This is when the UN was created 75 years ago. And the day after, they're going to be all celebrating Small Business Day. So we're going to do a major celebration with them. We have major countries coming in, and we're delighted to invite you all for this day. It's a very simple thing. We're going to invite the world basically to do events online or in person and just celebrate the day with us. And that's our way of building an ecosystem.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank you.
Ayman.
Thank you. I mean, that's, you know, there's sort of there are, I think, some great value propositions for us in ESHIP, but also I'm sort of where for us in ICSB that being able to get some new insights on this ecosystem building sort of model that it appears to be the missing link in a lot of the ecosystem research that I remember that the first time there was a big workshop at the Academy of Management, they had 4 very important people discussing entrepreneurial ecosystems, and one doctoral student raised her hand and said, where are the people? Where are the entrepreneurs? Where are the entrepreneurship developers? And they all looked blankly at her. That was Christina Diadaraki, who one of the links in there is to her incredible ICSB Women Are on Ecosystems. Somebody asked about journal output. Right now, most of what's being done in ecosystems is pretty either very narrow or, let's be honest, lame. But I think the ecosystem builder model and some of the things that we're finding out are going to be tremendous. And I have assurances from Research Policy and some of the other A journals and A+ journals that they're actually quite they're quite interested in that. And that's certainly I think a hook for you guys. It's getting students better engaged in ecosystem building. One of the things we have also
Norris, you talked about potential areas for publication and research. The International Council for Small Business has a new journal out called the Journal of the International Council for Small Business. I have your email list, so we'll send you a recap of this. And we're looking for creative ideas. We're looking for cutting edge ideas. We're looking for ideas that a typical journal will say, oh, no, that's not something we want to do here. We're looking at publications and research that moves the needle forward, that moves the needle, that kind of gets people to think creatively here. And this journal is new, but it's with Taylor and Francis, one of our largest publishing houses in the world. And I'll send it. Yep, great. And so you're welcome to join. We actually have a session this Friday. If you want to join, if you go to ICSB, and you can pitch the editor directly. We're doing the classic marketplace. You have an idea, come pitch it to the editor. The editor likes it. You get a star. That means you're ready to submit. You're not going to get desk rejected, but start working on it. So the invitation is open.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that that this is an area that is desperate for both the A journal kind of publications and the publications your mom will read, that the policymakers will read. That this is again, people are. It's not just because it's an election year in the U.S., but it doesn't hurt that there's focus on some of these policy issues, and most of our politicians have no clue about what we're trying to do, but they're open to hearing that. I think this SME Day, I'll send out something more on that, but there are some multiple opportunities to do some really exciting activities. That for the ESHIP people, if those are on the call, I think there are a lot of allies on this call. I'm just looking at the names on the call. There are some absolutely badass educators, badass researchers, and people with all with big brains, bigger hearts. And I think, and don't worry, Goal 5 will have its not so humble ask shortly. Are there any other questions? I know we're coming up at the top of the hour. That I'm glad that Michelle Brousseau, thank you for your questions. Anybody want to? Are there any other questions? Anybody want to jump in while we have a chance? Is ICSB have global representation? Ayman, is there's still like an Australia, New Zealand affiliate of
ICSB now is a membership-based organization, so you can directly become a member, but we have something called knowledge hubs. which is if you want to create a hub in your organization or university or group, please contact me and I'll share you where the information is. But I look forward to working with Norris and everybody else as well on this. This is a new journey for everybody here. So the more people we can join, the better.
Is it? Yeah, there was a question about that in the past ICSB had affiliates in at least 15 different countries. There is a very great hub in Europe. The U.S. hub is something called ICSB, and they're very focused on education. And there's really starting to, they have people who are bigger troublemakers than I am running it. So I'm quite tickled. The ECSB, the European Council for Small Business, has also been doing some absolutely marvelous things. So worldwide you have what, 10,000 members? More?
Yeah, we're in 85 countries. Our members are in 85 countries. So we know everybody. We call it the ICSB family because somehow you know someone that knows someone that knows ICSB. So we're just welcome everybody.
And the current president for ICSB, for instance, is from Egypt. And he's a cool cat.
Yeah.
The people asked about the global is that Kauffman's funding and previous is legally limited to the USA. However, words don't cost anything. Just firing some electrons around that. This is something that we find is global because like the folks at Startup Genome have discovered, just as Brad Fell did years ago, that there are some very common themes that we need to know. I definitely like to plug Genome because they do really good science, and they've made their secret sauce publicly available. I think there's a golden age here, but I think the leverage point that we for ESHIP need is, our, great minds that are eager to help. I mean, I saw in the chat, follow your energy. That's how you should figure out what projects you're in. Alistair, did you get your question answered?
Norris, I think we're running up on time here. So,
okay. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you, Christine.
Wait, hold on, Norris.
Yes.
What I'd like to do is ask just everybody here. So let me just start with Christine, maybe closing remarks, and then I'll go with Annika and then and you at the end. So Christine, any closing remarks?
Yeah, thanks, Ayman. I appreciate this opportunity a lot. I really appreciate the chat and everyone's engagement, and hopefully this is just like the beginning of how our two communities and the efforts that we've been doing, individually can come together collectively. And so I'm a big better together kind of person. So look forward to seeing folks on upcoming ESHIP Goal meetup calls. We have our ESHIP Summit later this year. So just looking forward to continued engagement and being able to support one another. Thanks again, Ayman and Norris, for making this happen.
Great, thank you very much. Annika, do you have any closing remarks?
Open invitation in line with what Christine said. I've met so many people who attended the ESHIP Summit and said, I have found my people. So if any of what you heard today resonates with you, there's a good chance that this summit is a great place for you to go, meet people and see what else is possible. And you'll figure out that you're not alone in what you're trying to do. So I hope we're going to see you there.
Great, very eloquent. Thank you, Annika. And Norris, what about you? Last comments?
There are times you walk into a room, first time you said, my God, this is my tribe. I would echo Annika. It was like, damn. It's like walking into ICSB, you go, damn. That one of the things that we're missing in all this is that there have been relatively few university-based people that are involved in this. And in fact, there's a great deal of skepticism from the ESHIP family, the ESHIP nation toward academics, but that's because they haven't met you guys. And all I know is what I told them is, I think I said, this is what I said to the folks at ESHIP originally. Ayman is a freaking doer. This is ICSB gets shit done, and I would ride to battle with these guys anytime, just as I'd ride to battle with ESHIP. And I think y'all gonna like, as you get more involved, you're gonna love the people you meet. And Annika's absolutely right. If Beth has left us, I don't know if you noticed how nervous I was when I was presenting, because this is just that exciting, just that important. Ayman, thank you again, and thank you, Christine. Christine's holding up a heart. Annika, as usual, says it better than I in 1/10 of the words. So she should probably be into storytelling, right?
Norris,
So,
thank you very much. You have
right.
ICSB behind you 100% here. We're just delighted to have you here. You are a Nicholas Tesla, to be honest with you, and I'll stick to this. With everybody
Thanks so
else,
much, Serge.
thank you all for joining us here. And tomorrow, next week, ICSB will have the largest online family business research conference. So please do check us out there. And then the end of next week, we'll also start our entrepreneurship and the arts series. We have artists coming in, giving us tours on entrepreneurship and the arts here. So we're moving and focusing on the arts now. So we're delighted, from family business to the arts here. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Norris. Thank you, Annika. Nice meeting you as well. Thank you all for being here, and have a wonderful and safe day, and keep in touch. Take care, everybody.